Good evening, folks. Tonight, we've got two things in store for you. First, we're going to start off talking for just a moment to Carrie. She'll be our guest next week as we talk about her interactions in regards to me and my disciplinary process in regards to the episode Elder Holland, Liar, Liar, Pants on Fire. Following that, we'll talk to Carrie Sweet, the author of the book Goodbye Mormon Undies. And so tonight, stay with us. It's going to be a fun time. Thank you for joining us here on Mormonism Live.
Hello.
Hey, how are you?
I'm great. What a great introduction you did.
Yeah, it was.
I like that.
We winged it. We hope it was good.
I feel like we were Penn and Teller. You were Penn, I was Teller.
Yeah, you did do the Teller shtick where you did a little bit of sort of miming things, and it worked out really good. I appreciated the energy. Folks, welcome to Mormonism Live. It is the 26th of February. First things first, I want to bring on to the show. By the way, anything in your world, RFM, that you're thinking about or want to share before we jump into it?
All I'm thinking about is how great the show is going to be.
It is. It's going to be fantastic. But first, the teaser. We're going to bring on next week's guest, Kate. And so, Kate,
Hi.
First off, how are you doing?
I'm great. I'm really happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. Kate will be our guest next week, but she wants to announce something this week because what it is going to happen in between tonight and next week's show. I want to set the stage. Most folks have probably seen this from us talking about it on Mormonism Live, on Mormonism After Dark, and the Mormon Newscast. But you'll go by the handle of Poetic Kate.
Yes.
I assume this is X. Is that what this is?
Yes.
Awesome. And so you put out this post where you said, fun fact, when I worked at the church headquarters, CHQ, I was tasked with printing one of Bill Reel's Facebook posts that was a picture of Jeffrey R. Holland with the words liar stamped across his forehead in red lettering and sending it to his stake president. I'm sorry, Bill. First off, let me just say forgiveness is to you. I'm just glad that through over the process of time and experience that you've come to realize that Elder Holland and the church on some level does portray deception. So I appreciate the apology. I'll just note too, the second post you put out said, sorry, it was this picture actually. I printed it in black and white and my manager made me reprint it in color because he wanted the stake president to be extra aware of the red lettering and how blatant the messaging was. Laughing my ass off. So, I just want to note, by the way, the fact that they had you go to the Facebook post rather than the podcast episode to me seems strange because that's actually the original where the thing was posted. Maybe they didn't want you guys listening to the podcast or whatnot. But nonetheless, you put this post out. We have a mutual connection who put me in contact with you. Radio Free Mormons suggested we're going to interview this person, right? And I'm like, yeah, we should definitely do that. And I reached out to you. And you'll be on next week. We're really grateful that you're willing to do that. And I think we'll have a really fun conversation. I want to just spend another moment here giving you a chance to talk about what it is that you've got going on and how folks can be of support to you.
Thank you so much, Bill and RFM. I appreciate it so much. And I'm excited to come on next week and talk. I think this is actually the first time I've ever gone on somebody else's platform to talk about my time at church headquarters. So I'm really looking forward to it. What I am working on right now, so after I left church employment, I leaned really hard into art and writing and acting. And I actually wrote a feature-length screenplay recently. And this is a proof of concept of that feature-length screenplay. It's called Ho Phase. It's a pro-abortion comedy. It's my message to the world about how I feel about the law of chastity, about, abortion, and just feminism, I guess. And it's very important to me. It's very personal. There are actually a few references to Mormonism in the feature-length screenplay. I wouldn't classify it as an ex-Mormon kind of movie, but there are some references in there, a couple of nods to Mormonism, and we are crowdfunding right now. We have 5 days left to raise the budget to make this short film, and you can follow me at pretty much any social media on any site. My username is just Poetic Kate. And in my bio, there's a link to go and donate. So any donation, I would just be so grateful. We've assembled a great cast and crew. I don't know if you know Samantha Shelley from Zelf on the Shelf, another kind of ex-Mormon platform, but Samantha Shelley is in it. She's playing my best friend in the film.
I see her.
And yeah, she's amazing. I reached out to her because her name just kept coming to mind, and I was like, I need to ask her if she wants to be a part of this. So yeah, we have a great cast and crew lined up. 85% of the funds that we raise will be going towards paying all of these artists and going towards local businesses that we'll be renting from here in Utah. So that would just mean the world to me if you could contribute.
Awesome. Before we step away from this conversation with you completely, would you in the private chat just put a couple of the places that I can share throughout the show for folks to connect up with what you're doing and the project that you're working on so that folks can have a chance to contribute and follow along with the project? And otherwise, I'm so excited to see you next week. And it's going to be a fun conversation as we talk about the Elder Holland episode and your part that you played in helping the church to nail me to the wall. So I'm excited to have that conversation.
Yeah, Kate, just look both ways crossing the street for the next week, okay?
I know, if anything happens, I'll write it all down so you can still go over it next week.
Awesome. I'll look forward to those messages in the private chat. And otherwise, I'm going to take you off the screen and really appreciate you and the work that you're doing.
Thanks so much, Bill. Thank you.
All right. Take it easy. All right. Awesome.
This is like Jesus having Judas on his podcast.
This is, except Judas didn't go string himself up in a tree. Judas recognized that she was working for the thing that does what the thing does, and she saw the light, and so she'll come on next week and share her journey and that whole episode in post-Mormon church history. So it'll be a fun time. All right, RFM. Now we're going to turn the time over to Carrie Sweet. She wrote the book Goodbye Mormon Undies. So I'm going to bring Carrie on now. Carrie, how are you?
Hi.
Carrie, good evening.
Hey, it's Goodbye Magic Undies.
Goodbye Magic Undies. Is that what I said?
No.
What did he say?
Mormon.
Oh,
Mormon Undies.
I mean, same.
Goodbye Magic. I'm sorry about that, Carrie. Goodbye Magic Undies. By the way, the underwear that you have a picture of on the cover of the book, those are much better undies than the ones that I had to sleep next to, because Mormon underwear are just not that attractive. Sleep next to for a few decades. What's that?
Bill, at least you didn't say Goodbye Midget Undies.
No, at least
that would have been really bad. And by the way, if anybody out there gets that, you get a gold star.
All right. Well, Carrie, first off, we've been planning this for a few weeks. Your book has come out. I want to give you a chance to sort of introduce yourself to the audience. You have been a big fan of our work, and I've seen you in the chat over a long period of time. I want to give you a chance for the audience to sort of get to know you before we jump into a conversation, and you get to share some slides and photos and parts of your life that sort of led to your journey in writing this book.
Okay, awesome. Well, I want to give my caveat. This is my disclaimer, because I am professional and we always give disclaimers when we're disseminating information. This book, I am very proud of it, but I don't claim that it's going to be a magic pill. It is not something that is the end all be all. It doesn't solve anything. What it does do is, I think I'm very vulnerable in it, because I want people that are in my situation or have been in my situation to see themselves and be able to identify, because that is what I really needed when I was going through that for like 5 years. And I'm not also saying that I'm all better. I left Mormonism 5 years ago. It's an ongoing, I call it my ongoing reconstruction. I don't know if I'll ever completely heal from all the trauma that has literally changed our brains chemically. But I am so much better, and I've learned coping skills, and that is my goal for other people, to actually learn healthy coping skills, because the church taught us a lot of coping skills that were not healthy. And then when we leave, we're kind of thrust out as kind of adolescent maturity level people trying to make decisions without a blueprint. So that was more my intention of the book, just to get what I wanted out there, and have people identify and hopefully trigger some things for them to think about.
Well, it sounds great.
Yeah.
What I want to know is, did the trigger for this book come 10 years ago when you had a faith crisis? That's just a little Austin Fife humor there.
Well, I did go through an Austin Fife level crisis, faith crisis.
Yes, I remember you said that.
Yeah, where I didn't actually ever stop going to church, but we'll get into that later.
Okay. What will we get into first? One wonders.
Probably my underdrawer. I don't know.
I got nothing.
If you left RFM speechless, you nailed it.
So the reason why I picked those pink underwear is because before I actually went to the temple, and you'll see later, I was a cheerleader and everything. And I was a teenager, and I really wanted to wear those kind of like cute underwear. But because my upbringing was Mormon and my mom was like modest is hottest, I had under my cheerleading bloomers giant like pink underwear, green underwear. It was like granny underwear. So I was thrilled I actually got to buy my own when I was older. So that's why I chose the pink ones. And there's no lawsuit pending because I used like the garments.
Gotcha.
Okay. Any questions so far?
No. I really want to. How far back do we need to go to sort of start this journey, or where you want to sort of kind of leap off from?
Yeah, I'll go over this timeline really quick because I'm 46 and it's been a long road. So it started out in 1979. I was born in Texas, moved to California. So I grew up a California Mormon, which was outside of like Morador, and it was a different experience than a lot of people. I had a mini faith crisis, which this crisis was, I actually stopped going to church, Fife, and I went to other churches, and I, had sex. I did all kinds of things I was a cool apostate compared to, I just was looking for the truth. I was looking for all kinds of stuff. I was disowned by my family for a while, and that's parts in the book, and I swung back. I doubled down. I got pregnant. At 19, I freaked out that I was not going to have a priesthood holder as a father because my boyfriend was ex-Mormon. He was never Mormon. And yeah, so I got married. I went back, and my repentance process I outlined in the book. It was not great, but it could have been a lot worse. So I got married. I had a baby right away. I had another baby again right away. I got my endowment in 2004. My husband still wasn't a Mormon at that point, but I was so convicted. I just knew, and I had been told so many times that explicitly, if I endured to the end, if I was good enough as a Mormon, that my husband would join and we would be a forever family. So I worked extremely hard on that. So I went and got my endowment in Portland in 2004. Went to nursing school. I was in nursing school at that time. I had a baby number 3 like a week before I graduated with my bachelor's degree in Florida.
How does that work? That you have your third baby or any baby a week before you graduate with your bachelor's degree?
Because I was a worker. I don't know. The church teaches you to be a worker bee, and I was a worker bee.
That's amazing to me.
Well, buckle up. It's going to
Going
get
to be a
better.
bumpy night.
So baby number 4, 2009, which I was in grad school for like 4 years. So that was during that time. And then I got sealed in 2010. My husband joined the church.
Yay.
We all got sealed. I was so happy.
You're being blessed for all your righteousness.
Yes. And I felt like I was righteous and I made it. I was starting around. I had baby number 5 in 2012. That was 2 months after I graduated with my master's degree, and I'm an advanced practice nurse. So I'm a like primary care provider. And I specialized in like evidence and research and all that.
I'm sorry, what did you major in? I apologize. I was over here thinking how incredible this is. You know, like a month before you graduate with your bachelor's degree, baby. 2 months after you graduate with your master's degree, baby. And then you said something else, which I entirely missed.
I'm an advanced practice nurse. So I'm a provider, medical provider.
Okay.
And so that's what I was getting then. And then, so then I moved to Texas, and I still was like, I need to have more babies because these spirits need to be born. Pregnancy number 6 didn't result in a live child, and I almost died. And that's a whole other story, but I needed an emergency D&C, and in Texas, even at that time before the new abortion stuff, people didn't want to deal with me, and I almost died, but I didn't die. But then I was like, I didn't die. I should get pregnant again.
Oh my Lord. Yes.
You do have to multiply and replenish the earth. That is your responsibility. So
yeah,
there's not much choice, really.
I'm guessing that was religiously motivated.
Absolutely. And partially, I love my kids very much, and I felt like a duty. They're going to watch this. Some of my older kids are probably watching. Hey, I loved them and I wanted them, but I should have stopped. It was physically really stressful, and I was like working full time through all these pregnancies and going to school and all that.
Carrie, this is the double bind that I absolutely despise that people get put in who are in your position, which is you have to basically, when you've already done everything that the prophets and Elder Anderson, this is his specialty, right, is guilting women into having babies after they should stop having them. When you do that and you have a baby and the baby wonderfully is born and grows up, now you can't say anything about it, because the idea is that if you say anything, I shouldn't have had another baby, then you're saying, well, I wouldn't have had this last baby, whom of course you love.
Oh, yes.
That's the double bind.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the game is set up in such a way that you can't criticize it.
Yeah. And who would who would take their child back?
I got a few. I'm just saying.
Well, I think I have a lot of empathy because I do have one of my children is on the autism spectrum, and I feel a special empathy for women coming out of the church that were basically they didn't feel like they had a choice. It was their duty to have children, and then they have special needs kids, and it is a lifelong commitment, and it's hard. And then you are faced with, would I even have done that?
Can I tell you how a lot of times unaware I am, which is I had never, until you just said it now, even thought about all the women who follow that prophetic counsel, get pregnant, but the child is born, but not healthily. And what that causes, and all of that's going on as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I had one kid with scoliosis, one with a heart defect, and one on the autism spectrum.
You do?
Mm-hmm. And they're all fine. They're all great.
Yes.
And they're healthy and everything, but it was stressful.
Yeah.
And I was still having babies, and I was basically pregnant or breastfeeding for like 13, 14 years of my life.
I am just wondering if there's any more impactful in a negative way advice, counsel that these apostles are giving currently. I don't know. I know there's lots of bad things that they're doing, but I'm just shocked. And they just go blithely on. There's no consequence. There's no anything.
Mm-hmm. And the reason that because I know the reason I had lost those pregnancies, I had undiagnosed hypothyroid that was directly the result of having too many babies, because if you have multiple, and I was a grand multip, so I just burned out my thyroid, but I wasn't taking seriously medically. So it was undiagnosed until my second miscarriage. And in a culture that centers around family, family's the greatest, you would think you would have a lot of support when you lose babies. And people were very kind to me. Like my scout kids, like they made me cards. They didn't know what was going on, but they're very sweet. They knew I wasn't there for their lessons and stuff. But basically, I felt like I had to just be quiet about this extreme grief I was having. And I worked in OB at the time, so it was just in my face every day that other people were having these babies, and mine were dead. But because we're supposed to be able to raise those children that we lose in the millennium, it's like it negates the grief that you feel, because it's okay, sister, you're going to have your chance to raise those kids later. So why are you so sad? Just get it over it. Have the next one.
Those are the words. Did that help?
No, it didn't help. I was outraged that I was dismissed. My grief was dismissed because I wanted those babies now. Like I wanted them in this life.
Yeah.
So
Mormonism does this thing. It puts so much pressure on you to fit a certain mold and to think a certain way about every experience in your life, that if you don't think the way the church wants you to, if you're more sad or more angry than it tells you you're allowed to be, then you're the bad guy for feeling something different than the status quo.
Carrie, I don't want to overstate this. Maybe I can't overstate it, but it really seems to me the more and more I hear stories and I hear what you have to say tonight, especially, it's just really striking home for whatever reason, that the church as an entity really, really wants its members to pump out new Mormons, to fill the roles, to do the work, to pay the tithing. And they want it to such an extent that they will put that burden on the women members of the church up to and beyond the point where it's healthy for them or their children. I mean, am I seeing this wrong? It seems pretty obvious that that's what's going on. I think that's really bad.
It is. And there is a lot less pressure, I think, now, but it's still there. Because it wasn't that long ago that I went through that. It's only 10
No, and
years.
Elder Anderson, I do those general conference reviews, so I have some awareness in the last few years as to what's been spoken about. And he's spoken about it in the last, I would say, 5 years. Sometimes time gets away from me. That's why I'm inflating it to 5. But within the last 5 years, he talked about it, and he referenced his talking about it like 10 years before that, and how this woman had come forward. And of course, the stories he tells are the women who come forward who really probably shouldn't be having babies. And the doctors are saying, don't have a baby, but they go ahead and they follow what God is telling them through the mouth of the anointed prophets, and has a baby and it's healthy. Those are the stories that get told.
Well, I was an OB nurse for a long time, and it doesn't always turn out so happy. It's a risk every single time you get pregnant.
I just want to add to this, because Debbie's saying it. Debbie Donovan there says, well, it's cheaper to make them than convert them for the church. Every business has the cost of doing business. It costs so many dollars to bring a new customer into your door, and it's way easier to keep a current customer than it is to go find a new one. And the cost it takes to pay a mission president, train missionary, whatever it is, to send missionaries out to knock on doors, then 1 out of every 492 doors does someone join the church. It's just so much easier to have the women of the church pop babies out. That is the cheapest way to get another tithe payer. And so I think Debbie hits, a really significant point in the head, which is often the work the church does that looks like it's for investigators isn't. It's for members. It's meant to build loyalty and faith in the missionary, not to convert the people on the other side of the door. And so you see sort of the baby making sort of plays into that.
And for those who are not members, this goes hand in hand with the age-old admonition that young people in the church receive to get married as soon as possible. After the boy serves a mission, right? That's really the only thing that has to be done first. And after that, it's marriage veil in the temple. 3 most important things you can do in this life, right, is to marry the right person, the right time, and the right place.
If they're a worthy priesthood holder, they will be the right person. You don't even have to find the right person.
Absolutely. And so you get married, and then you start having children as soon as possible, and finances are not an issue. We don't care if you're not making enough to have a child. You have that child anyway, and God will take care of the rest. And it's a good thing God will, because the church sure isn't going to help a lot.
Right.
I mean, also, I was so busy with all these kids until I could kind of breathe a little bit. I couldn't go and think and explore and see like, oh, this church is not what I think it is. Like, it just keeps you in that like a constant. I'm not a good mom because I'm not doing all of the things that the church tells me is a good thing for me to do for my kids, because it's impossible. And so you're just in the cycle of always working, volunteering, cooking missionary meals.
Yes.
All of it.
It's exhausting.
It is.
No time to think.
Well, I did take time to think because I got my doctorate in 2015.
Okay.
And that actually opened up my mind so much, because it was such an intellectual exercise. And I did my doctoral work on women's autonomy in childbirth. So that made me even explore that more and more, of like, oh, women should have autonomy. And what? It's such a weird concept.
Did you choose the subject, or was it assigned?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, you chose it.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think you chose that?
Because I was, especially in Texas, I saw such health inequities, and how, like, if you were poor or not white, there was such inequities, and it's like the more disadvantaged you were, the less autonomy you had, because the physicians would just, and the nurses, like, they just have tolerance for your like crazy ideas, which aren't crazy at all, mostly evidence-based. But so I saw women being hurt in the normal physiologic process of birth, because they're not listened to, and they weren't respected, and their choices weren't respected at all. So, and I'm not talking about abortion. I'm talking about just childbirth.
You're talking about their choices that would fall within the normal realm of reasonable health care.
Absolutely.
Yeah, not some crazy choice out there that the doctor says, no, we can't do that. Okay.
So I did that, and so this is my Austin Fife level faith crisis.
Oh, good.
Right here, from like 2015 to 2018, I was.
When you say that, Austin Fife seems to have had what you had back in 97 to 99, which was a mini faith crisis. Austin Fife doesn't seem to have had. He didn't even go inactive. He didn't even stop. He didn't even
stop going to church.
So this is the Austin Fife level, 2015 to 2018, because I went to church, I was active, but I kept thinking, well, even if it's not true, it's still good, the fruits of the fruit tree or whatever. I was like, and I don't know how to raise kids ethically with good morals and all the same things that parents worry about leaving, because you're told that you don't have anything without the church. But my teenagers are such great kids. Well, they are not teenagers anymore. They're married and grown and college grads. Yay.
Good mom.
That's on them. But they really are so smart. And just through them, I was able to start giving them a break and then also giving myself a break. Like there's no way that God wouldn't love them because they're amazing. And I don't care if they're gay or they don't want to go to church or whatever. I love them, and so it just kept like the logic kept like failing me, the church logic. And I started developing my own logic around God. And but I never stopped going to church during that time until I moved to Idaho. When I moved to Idaho, I was like, this was like one of my last hurrahs in Mormonism. I was like, I don't really think that Joseph Smith was a prophet. He just had some good ideas. He had some crap ideas, but I'm here now. This is my community. These are my people. This is my family. All my family was still active members at that time. And my husband, I didn't think that was going to last. After 20 years, I figured like there's a lot of problems, which I don't really get into because I still have minor children and I'm under Idaho family court law. So there was issues with him. And I wanted to be close to my family. And I really thought if I moved to somewhere that was really Mormon, that I would be welcomed in and I could be a part of like the community and just kind of live supported and just be like away from the apostate kind of like rogue Texas type of Mormon or the California Mormon. I wanted to be with the real Mormons.
Mm-hmm. And that's what killed your testimony.
It 100% did.
Your testimony survived all of these horrible atrocities all along the way, but Idaho, it could not survive.
No, I was appalled, like working in, because I worked in lots of conservative areas, but there was such a different, it was just Mormon. Everything was Mormon. Lots of the physicians were Mormon. Everyone was Mormon. One of the first,
was this in Boise?
Yes. Yeah. I came there and somebody that was helping me adjust to my new role and stuff, he was like a preceptor kind of, he is LDS, he still is, and he's great, and I think the world of him. But one of his first questions, I was like, yeah, I'm Mormon. He's like, oh, what was your calling? He immediately was establishing my Mormon cred. Like, how good a Mormon are you?
That's the thing we do.
What did you tell him?
I said, because I had been in Scouts for the last several years before I left. So I just was like, oh, I was Scouts.
Yes. Perfect.
But I saw how misogynistic and how controlling, and I would just fight for the women, and people were transphobic, and there was just so much bias, and so much bias against the women. They shouldn't, like, there's a lot of bias of anyone that ever did any drugs or drank, and it's statistically shown that the window that you have with somebody that is fighting an addiction, the window when they're pregnant is the easiest time for them to make a change because they're the most motivated most of the time. They're motivated for themselves and their baby. And instead of treating them like crap and less than, I loved supporting women. Like, if you want to make a change right now, let's do it. And the long-term success of that is higher than just another person that wasn't pregnant trying to quit. But they were treated like so terribly. And there was such a double standard because I was in charge of, initially I was in charge of all the OB nursing practice and NICU and everything for the state of Idaho, all of the St. Luke's. They're the biggest employer there for healthcare. Anyway, I would go into all the different sites and I would talk to the nurses, and we would have babies that would come into the NICU after they were born with withdrawals from opiates. And they were Mormon moms. And I'm like, why weren't these moms screened for these drugs? And they're like, we would never ask them that because they're Mormon. We just assumed that they would never have taken drugs.
Oh, I thought the answer was going to be because, of course, they would lie because they're No,
they didn't ask them.
Oh, my word. Oh, my word. That's much better as far as the lawsuit goes.
It was very sad.
Yes, it is sad.
So then I had my major faith crisis, which I resigned my marriage and Mormonism within a month.
How did that happen?
My divorce was final in June, and I was waiting because Idaho's special when it comes to family law. I found it's different than other places, and I thought that maybe I would enjoy some benefit being a female, because mothers are so, pedestaled in that culture. But I found that I was my husband had much more the advantage in that situation. But I did get divorced, and then because I didn't want him to I didn't want to tell him I was leaving the church, because then he would try to control what I did next with the kids. So I just didn't say anything. And then I resigned like right after my divorce was final.
What led to that? Your resignation?
I didn't believe, but there was still part of me that has so much anxiety of quitting, because I was giving up my ceilings. But I had started therapy like a year before, and I had slowly realized, and I didn't really even talk about church in therapy, but through my experiences with the bishops and everything, I was like, even if it is true, I can't do this. And I don't want to be harassed. I don't want them to find me. I don't want to get excommunicated. And so I just resigned.
Carrie, what were the main things in Mormonism as you're learning about it and all of its dysfunction? What were the things that sort of stand out as like really weighing on you and playing a part in your resignation and stepping away from it?
I could not reconcile. The biggest thing was I could not reconcile. I was told that a mother's love is the closest thing to godly love, divine love for us. And I could not reconcile that the church is a manifestation of that divine love. Like it just did not make sense anymore. And of course, like I was not a lazy learner, so I knew a lot about historical issues and all of that, which I had, did all my gymnastics to be okay with it for so long. But I was like, there's just no way, and I don't want to be a part of it. And I really thought, I think that the Joseph Smith was just a complete fraud.
Yeah.
So everything else from that is just untrue.
Yeah. It sounds like if I hear you right, you're saying that when you looked at the way the church operates, it's prophet, seers, and revelators, and the directives that sort of come down from the top, and what you perceived as their motivations or what they seem to be concerned about didn't match what you thought the ultimate love of what God would be. Those two didn't seem to go hand in hand.
No, because my children did not fit into the Mormon mold. And I didn't take like a political stand or anything. That unraveled everything for me. That's what started it. There's no way. My kids are so great that God has to love them more than I do. And if I can love them no matter what, unconditionally, then church, who cares? It doesn't matter. I know that sounds very flippant and easy. It was not easy. And it was way more involved, but that was the core.
Yeah.
Forgive the leading question, but did you feel that the church put you in the position of, under your circumstances, having to make a choice between the church or your children?
No. I mean, in a way, yes. Because I never felt like they were forcing me. I knew I had the choice of following their advice and distancing myself and everything, but I had experienced that from my parents, and I continue to experience that. But I was like, I could never do that. And so when things started to kind of crack, everything, and then I had such a great example of them, it just didn't make any sense. And then also, like, there was other issues where I just felt very unprotected. Like I would go to bishops rarely, but when I did, it was a big deal. And it was just the party line. Like, no matter what your husband is doing, he's your husband. So, and one bishop told me, you would be surprised, sister, how many people are dealing with your situation in the ward. You're not unique. And
Oh, I feel so much better now. Thank you, Bishop.
yeah. Yeah.
I'm putting a couple of things up on the screen because, again, RFM did this earlier when he sort of addressed the non-member. We learned this just in the last couple of weeks that 30% of our audience have never been Mormon. And on one hand, the church sells you this beautiful product on the front end, which is that families can be together forever. If you join this church and you get sealed in these temples, you will be an eternal family forever. And then the moment you join, everything from that point forward is, you better get this all right or you won't be together. You better get this all right. And so 2 examples here. Families can be together forever. And then Russell Nelson, April 2020. The time is coming when those who do not obey the Lord will be separated from those who do. And then the other one I had up here was Hartman Rector talking about if someone doesn't pay tithing, without tithing, there is no exaltation. At one point in the church, tithing wasn't even required to be a completely faithful member in the church. And now if you don't pay that 10%, which used to be surplus or interest, if you don't pay that gross tithing, you can't be with your family forever. And we all sort of reconcile it by saying, God can't have the unworthy be with him. Like those people have to go somewhere else.
God's very sensitive. He has a
Yeah,
condition.
Jesus didn't care. He kicked it with everybody, but God is very sensitive.
Yeah. Your entire time in Mormonism, you sort of live with this giant burden that if me, my spouse, my kids, if everybody doesn't carry their fair share of the righteousness burden and do the right things, and none of us feel like we're doing it, we all feel like we're failing. You sort of live like you're tipping, you're walking on eggshells. You're so careful that maybe this could fall apart at any moment and we won't end up together. It's like it sells you the blessing, and then after you've bought it, it gives you all the work that has to go in to get that blessing. And there's a little bit of you that feels like you get tricked.
Yeah, it gives you the disease and then sells you the cure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I just wanted to make note. People might have been wondering why I was putting those 2 quotes up. It's because it's to recognize that LDS theology is constantly telling you, LDS leaders are constantly telling you that if you don't do all the things, and Mormonism has as many things as any religion.
More.
It's a giant list. Somebody made the list once. It's like 2,382 things you have to do in Mormonism to be a good boy.
I thought that was the number of corrections in the Book of Mormon. It was actually 600 and something commandments.
It is. That's what it is, RFM. So anyway, that's the reason I put those up, and just so folks could understand that. Anyway, wrap us up here, and then let's jump into some photos and things of you growing up, and we'll start to make our way towards the book.
Coming around the clubhouse turn.
Yeah. So I'll talk a little bit more about the Catholic part. But I became Catholic. I am Catholic, even though I'm a lesbian who's married to a woman. But between that time, I got married to another man. That was a journey.
This is all in your book?
Yep.
Because this sounds like a hell of a story.
Well, it's not like an autobiography. There's examples that relate to the points that I wanted to make, like vignettes basically. So, but yeah, it does talk about that and about him. And then marriage number 3, 2023, here we are. And now I'm on Mormonism Live 2025.
And curtain, because life can't get any better than this. This is as good as it gets. Mormonism Live 2025.
I want to ask you something about your growing up. You mentioned in the book sort of growing up in a state of poverty, correct?
Absolutely, yes.
And yet in that moment of having a deeply dysfunctional father, if I'm not mistaken, and growing up in poverty, you sort of recollect that some of the really good moments were church moments.
I love church.
Yeah. And so I want to ask you, because at least for me, the positives were so good at the time that they really locked me into loving church and wanting to be there. And I think it took me longer to figure out that the truth claims didn't hold up, because from 17 years old till 32, practically, Mormonism allowed me as a white cisgender male who loved to give talks and loved to read books. It gave me such a great place to perform.
Absolutely, Bill. I agree. Like I talk in the book about, I got so many benefits from Mormonism, not worth the cost at all, because I could have just gone and taken us like a public speaking course or something else. But I did benefit, and I am the person I am because of it.
Yeah. It had to have been sort of a weird thing for the church to be the good thing in your life, and only years later to sort of figure out like it had overburdened you with its theology and with its perspective on how things should be handled.
Yeah. When my stepbrother, when we were teenagers, he said one of the most profound things to me on that line, because he was a couple years younger than me and was struggling going to church and was kind of getting bullied by the bishop for not wanting to participate. And I was like, he's at least coming. I don't care if he sits in the foyer. I was a little spicy. But I was trying to convince my stepbrother, like, it's great, you should just go. I really feel like you could participate, whatever. And he's like, Carrie, you feel that way because the church saved your family from starving when you were younger. Like, you owe something to the church, and so that's why you feel that way. And I was like, F you, whatever. Like, no, but it was that. Seth, you were right.
So the church saved your family from starving when you were younger?
Well, we got church welfare. So we were pretty poor, and so we did have church welfare from time to time. And he knew that, because when we all became a new family, they were like, we didn't even know what ranch was.
Are we talking about dressing?
Yeah. I mean, I knew what it was, but we never used it. That was something you had at a restaurant.
What did you have? Anything?
We had, our specialty was homemade Thousand Island dressing, mayo and ketchup, maybe some pickles.
The best. The best.
And my mom was an incredible cook. So she made magic out of nothing sometimes.
By the way, I come back to that to underscore that fact for 2 points. One is for the potential of the impact on you and how it's affected your journey along the way in your relationship with the church. And number two, because I think it's also important to underscore when the church does good things, because heaven knows they do enough things that I criticize. I think it's only fair to highlight things that they do, which are good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we definitely were looked out. Like, our ward family looked out for us. And like, they would we lived in a rural community outside of Sacramento that was close to a base. My stepdad was an Air Force enlistment, like airman, staff sergeant, whatever. And like, they would let us, like, after they harvested, we could go and pick the orchard, and then we would make jam and preserves and all kinds. Like, they looked out for us. It was nice, but we were kind of like the second class citizens because we weren't successful.
So in these pictures, which one are you?
I'm the oldest.
You're the
So I'm
oldest.
the one holding the baby.
Look at that.
I
1989.
could tell that. I'm very proud of myself.
Yeah, those are my sisters. So these are my sisters and my best friends. And I think they're probably all in the chat watching, and I just love them. I wanted to show, like, just, we're a typical Mormon family. You wouldn't think anything was going on weird.
Yeah, you
You
look
can't
like
tell that was taken in the 80s. No way. One on the left and the one on the right. Similar.
with having I'll let you say whatever you want to say, but to whatever degree you want to say about the dysfunction in your family that you can't really see in a photo where everyone's smiling, did you have trouble sort of separating like parental perspective from church perspective? Did those lines ever sort of get blurred? And any thoughts there you have on that?
During this time period, my stepfather, he actually left the church, not because later, not that long ago, I guess. I haven't talked to him in years, but family grapevine. He left because the church has gotten too liberal. He's one of those type of people, ultra prepper, very homophobic, racist. I was indoctrinated with an extra level that was beyond just the church level. But all of that was informed by Mormonism for him.
Mm-hmm.
And can I underscore something else that I think you said? So let me ask you that question first, Carrie.
Mm-hmm.
I think that a while back you had said in passing that you had come to the point when you left the church that even if the church were true, you would have left. Is that correct?
Yes.
Want to underscore that. Because when I was an active and observant and believing Mormon, that was the trump card. That it's true. That's why I did everything that I did for the church, mission to Japan, everything, all the sacrifice, the tithing, the attendance, because it was true.
Yeah.
If it were not true, I would not have done any of that. Right. And yet I too came to a point, but let's talk about yours, where all of a sudden you realize, wait a second, even if the church were true, I've still got to separate myself from it. How does that work?
It's hard when all your family is still active. I've been disappointed in them forever. Not really, but in a way, yeah, I have.
With all your degrees? I think that you have been a source of pride in a lot of things to your parents and your family.
Thank you.
But how is it that if the church is true, that's still not the trump card? How did you go, if you went the same path I did, from thinking that's the big deal? That's why I give everything to, even if it is true now, I've moved to a place where that's not enough.
Mm-hmm. Well, I read, I can't remember who wrote it, but Believing Christ. It was a Mormon.
Stephen Robinson.
Yeah.
Good job, Bill.
So I read that years before I actually became a PMO, and I took it very seriously. I would believe what Christ said. And I think I really learned about what
Carrie,
Jesus actually said.
Carrie, can I back up now? And I apologize because I just realized once again, we're talking with this understanding because I read it and I would not have remembered the name. When you said Believe in Christ, I went, oh, it's that BYU professor. What the heck is his name? I can never remember it. And then Bill remembered it. But this is a book that came out and basically changed some discourse in the church from a works-based system of salvation to a grace-based system of salvation. This is just some professor. He just wrote a book. He didn't talk in general conference. This isn't scripture, but boy, did this make a wave.
This guy's the first guy, right? So Robert Millett comes after him. Brad Wilcox does the playing the piano. It's just practice. You get Dieter Uchtdorf, who's riding on the coattails of all of them, who gives a conference talk around maybe 2015, where Elder Uchtdorf is the first general authority in general conference who is teaching grace in a way that Bruce R. McConkie would turn over in his grave. Stephen Robinson started the whole thing by believing Christ, and then he had a second book with Christ on a boat with fishermen on the front. It was more of a blue cover. I forget what that one was called, but it was sort of the same idea as well.
Well, actually, having read both and having been excited about it because I was making similar discoveries and publishing papers about it in the Journal of Book of Mormon Studies in the early 1990s. Anyway, this first book, he comes out radically for Mormons on the grace side, which got lots of ways. Lots of people were like thirsting for that, like they're in the desert of deeds, right? In the weeds of works. And they're trying to find the grace in Jesus, which Mormonism has a tough time pointing to on the x-ray and saying this is where his grace is, unless it's after you've done everything you possibly can do, which is an impossibly high standard in the first place, because nobody can possibly do everything they can possibly do.
Right. Well, until you die. So basically work yourself to death until you die. And then, yay.
Yes. And then he turned around and wrote a sequel in which he took back everything he said in his first book and made it all works-based again.
Yeah.
Because you can't get out of it and be true to Mormonism.
Yeah. Well,
you can't get out of the hamster wheel. Sorry, Carrie, you go ahead.
And that got me thinking, like, I'm going to actually believe Christ. And I kept studying, and I did believe Christ eventually, and it got me out of Mormonism.
How did that get you out of Mormonism?
Because Jesus Christ, when you don't just read from the gospel doctrine lessons, he has a very different message. So
in what way do you mean?
Well, he doesn't talk about homosexuality at all. And he hung out with a ton of men. And so and he was just very tolerant. And I felt that because I spent years on my knees praying and fasting and going to church and doing all the things to the nth degree. Like, I didn't just invite the missionaries over. I froze meals. Like, I would just drop stuff off. I was just wanted to try to be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And God, I just got to the point where if Jesus is the Son of God, then he knows my heart. And he would not want me to be in this abuse, like in my marriage or in the church. And he would not want me to raise my kids like this.
Mormonism was just too unhealthy. It wasn't the right context in which to be happy and find peace and joy living out a life.
And so even if it were true,
I figured that would get fixed on the other side. I mean, that's what we keep being told, to fix every problem.
Right. Yeah, there are times when a church can get so unhealthy, so have things so wrong, so bad that it doesn't make any difference whether it's true. In fact, if it were true, it would be damning against the church or against God anyway. So what happens next in your timeline?
Bill, yep, that's perfect. So this this is from when I was 7. So I was in like Bakersfield area. We were in this like tiny branch that grew into a ward, and this was a letter that my mother wrote me, and it's very precious to me because I don't have a lot of like handwritten things from my mom, and she's still alive and everything, but like I've kept this forever. And so we had this primary activity where it was so great. I remember I was only 7, but it was so fun. They pretended like we got little mission calls. It was like a missionary training center Saturday activity. And we got like an official letter, like in our mail, or like the Sunday before, I can't remember. And it had like the letterhead, like, Sister Sweet, you've been called to serve a mission in England. And then you need to report to the MTC at this ward building. And then they like did everything. They had like, we pretended to be on planes going to the Salt Lake, and it was just so much fun. And then we got like little care packages during the day and this letter. And I wanted to read it really quick. So this is from August of 1986.
So this
Dear
is like
Carrie,
you're on your mission and getting a letter from home.
Yeah, yes, that's what the parents were told to write, like as if
Okay.
it's a letter from home. I'm so proud of you making this special choice in your life by going on your mission. I know you will meet so many good people, and to think you can bring them to Heavenly Father's kingdom. How special you are. I know you are choice in Heavenly Father's eyes. You are so special to me. Don't you ever change. I know it is hard to be so good sometimes when all the other children are being bad, but Heavenly Father knows all, and He will bless you. Maybe not as soon as you would like, but when you have been proven, then the blessings will pour out from heaven. I know your Grandma Hammond loves you and is pleased that you are making the right choices in your life.
Had Grandma Hammond passed away?
Yeah. So my mom's mom passed away like 7 months before this letter.
Okay.
So this is very fresh in our family. And my mom took care of both her parents at the end of their life. And I have so much respect for that.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to clear that up because it sounded like maybe.
Mm-hmm. So she's watching me and she's happy. It is always easy to be bad, but real hard to obey and be wise for doing it. That's why so many people fail, because it is so hard. Just think how happy we'll be in the spirit world. All of us that obey the laws of Heavenly Father will be together forever. One big happy family we will be. Just think and pray for the people you will be helping to find the kingdom. Oh, how lucky they will be to have such knowledge. Stay close to your Father in heaven. We will always be there for you. Just remember, when you pray, it's just like talking to him on the telephone, except he's on mute because he never answered back. He really does listen and answer your prayers and helps you make the right choices. Carrie, I love you, and stay close to your Father in heaven. Love, Mom.
That's like me. I could be God. I'm always on mute. But Carrie, how does it make you feel reading that?
So, it's very sweet, and it's a lot of pressure for a 7-year-old. Don't ever change. Obey. We're all going to be together, and especially I can see how much pressure my mom was under to see her mom again, who she just had watched die of cancer and took care of her. So she was very young still, because she was only 19, 20 when she had me. And she had lost her mother, and she had all these little girls. And I can just see like how important it is to her for our family to be together again, and how that burden she was putting on me to make sure that I obeyed so that we could all be together.
Wow.
The comment that sticks out to me is this: don't you ever change. Of course you're going to change. You're a kid and you're going to grow into an adult and you're going to experience life. And not that Mormonism did that. Those are the words of your mom. But Mormonism does, and infantilize isn't the right word. I don't know if there's a word for teenagerize somebody, because what I think Mormonism does is it wants you to sort of stay a 13 to 15-year-old forever.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a Reddit post. I had read it a while back, and I just went looking for it as I was listening to you read the letter. In overprotection, the leader may foster a sense of dependency, discourage critical thinking, emotional manipulation, controlling communication. I think of a missionary going out and you're serving a mission. And again, you sort of saw this as a missionary prep activity. These are, again, young adults, but adults.
Mm-hmm.
When you go on a mission as an adult, you're still treated as a child. Give me your passport. If you can't leave, if you leave, we'll stop you. You're not really an adult. You're a kid still.
Mm-hmm.
And Mormonism says, trust us. We have the truth. Don't go looking anywhere else. Constant supervision, simplifying complex concepts. You always get, saints at the 4th grade reading level or whatever it is. You're not trusted to get the meat. It's always milk before meat, whether you've been in the church 20 years or not. And there's a lot of encouraging dependence on the leader.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of discouragement for personal autonomy. And it goes right along with this letter, which is, don't you ever change. But hell, you grow up, you become an adult. Of course, you're going to change and for the good that is. Like, that's a good thing that we grow up. It's a good thing that we experience life. It's a good thing that we change. And I'm not the same person I was when I was 11 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, just a thought there.
Yeah. RFM, do you have anything?
I'm just, seeing very much that this is a standard Mormon letter. It has all the standard Mormon tropes in it,
Mhm.
quite recognizable, even from a distance. And yet, yes, this intergenerational transfer of burden is really remarkable, isn't it?
Yeah, and I don't she was being the best mom she knew how to be.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
She didn't know what she was loading on me because she had to load it on her.
Well, I've loaded it on my kids.
Mormonism teaches you to pass the burden on.
Hmm.
She needs you to feel the same pressure about your eternal family that she feels about hers because her mom's gone and she's got kids to worry about. Like, Mormonism entrusts you to pass that burden on.
Okay, let me tell you the story, and I'll tell it really quick, okay? You know what day or night of the year I love more than any other, right?
Halloween.
Absolutely, Halloween. And I will be damned if, when the kids aren't young, in trick-or-treating age, Halloween doesn't fall on a Sunday.
Hmm.
You go back, you check whatever year it was. I mean, it's done it since, right? But it's when the kids are trick-or-treater age. And these are precious years, and it comes once a year. And now I feel I've got a choice. I'm thrust on the horns of a dilemma. Do I do the right thing, which is don't go trick-or-treating for God's sake on the Lord's Day, because he's really going to get pissed at that. He's not crazy about trick-or-treating in the first place because it's all that, demonic stuff, right? But to do it on his holy day, really problem. Or do we just go out anyway? Because you can't say, okay, we'll do it tomorrow, because you understand the problem, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I gathered the kids around and said, we're not going to go trick-or-treating because it's Sunday. As crazy as it may sound, that's one of the things that stings the most in my memory of a choice I made that I would have made differently had I not been living as the Mormon I lived.
I have lots. Yes. I think every parent has those. And my kids didn't understand why I was making choices like that. They understand more now.
Well, I explained it to them.
Look.
I don't believe it myself, but I'm explaining it to them, right? And still the sun goes down, it's Halloween, and I'm going,
did you hide? Like,
it's
did you
hard
pass
being
out
Mormon.
candy?
Oh, we were way out in the boonies. Nobody came out there anyway. So that wasn't a problem, that issue about trick-or-treaters coming to our place. I'm sorry, Bill, what?
I was just going to say, and then I want to go back to the slideshow here, and
Yeah.
time is passing quickly. So when you and I were in the church, and I don't think, again, I'm an outsider now, I don't get all the rhetoric. I'm not there on Sundays, but it was hammered into us how we are a peculiar people.
Mm-hmm.
And that idea is that you better darn well expect that expectations are higher, that the way in which you're going to live out your life. So the Halloween story to me is just a perfect example. There's so much pressure, even on a kid, to go, I have to accept being the weirdo in my school. I have to accept being the weirdo in my neighborhood. I have to accept being the strange kid who does this Mormon thing. And it isolates you. Mormonism loves that, by the way. It isolates you. It makes you have to stand up for your church. You feel bullied and burdened by the perspectives of others. And that's great for building loyalty in an entity and a system. The more picked on you are going on your mission, the more science says that you're going to be loyal to the system that sent you on that hard task. So anyway, the Halloween story sort of brought that up, but I'll put this back up on the screen.
Can you go back? I want to that last one really briefly. So I included this picture because I did talk about this horrible haircut that I got as a punishment in my book.
What, a punishment?
Yeah. So
oh my gosh.
I was 12 and it had grown out a little bit by this time, but like all my sisters have longer hair. Long hair is like, whatever virtue for women. But I was 12 and I've had now 5 12-year-olds, and 12-year-olds can get spicy. And I doubt that I was probably the mildest spicy ever, because I was so like, yes, whatever, so pleasing to everyone. But I had like got out of pocket too many times. I was too big for my britches, and they took me crying to get my haircuts to teach me humility. And then we took this picture later of.
But they took you to a barber. They didn't haul out the shears right there in the kitchen.
No, they took me to get it cut. Yeah.
As a punishment.
Mm-hmm. So next slide.
The stories behind the smiling eyes, huh?
Uh-huh. So I talk about my patriarchal blessing in the book, and I this is like a copy of a copy. Like I had just wore out my patriarchal blessing. I got it when I was 12, and I had read it so many times, and then I haven't read it in so long. But preparing for this, I was like, I'm going to kind of analyze this, and so I put all of the words in and to see like what themes would come up, and you can see all like bless, 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 serve, 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 and then like teeny, tiny, tiny, you can see carry. I'm like lost in this sea of stuff. Can you go to the next slide? Thank you. So like I said, I really patterned my life as I was told to do after this. And I can't even believe, no wonder my life didn't turn out the way I thought it would. But
You were 12 when you got this blessing.
I was precocious. I wanted all the blessings. I asked for it. My parents did not push me. Like I asked to. But there was lots of blessings listed, but they're pretty much encompassed with, I bless you to give of your time, energy, and finances to build up the Lord's kingdom. That was the gist of it. It talked 7 mentions of service, 8 mentions of a calling, which is service, 4 mentions of giving of yourself, which is service, 3 obedience, 5 being faithful in these things, and then it's going to suck. There's like mentions 3 times of challenges. And what do I get for that? All these promises. So the I is the patriarch, so he's speaking for God.
Mm-hmm.
And so God is promising these things predicated on all my obedience to all the Mormon stuff, plus all the stuff that's extra in my blessing. I promise you'll come to know that he's truly the Son of God. So, I get a testimony. Cool. I thought I already had that. I promise your influence will bring many souls into the Lord's kingdom. That is true. I helped convert a ton of people, and I'm sorry. Alicia Hammer, I am sorry. And she's like in Europe somewhere. She came on on a high school exchange, and I converted her. Sorry.
Carrie, but they're double dipping there because that's service. So what they're saying is, I bless you that if you serve in a missionary capacity, that you will serve in a missionary capacity. Excuse me. I bless you that if you serve in a missionary capacity, that I will promise you that your influence will bring souls, many souls, into the Lord's kingdom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. You will receive much happiness from your service to others. So that's my promise. I'm going to be happy about it.
Okay.
Your talents will come forth as you gain knowledge, and as you develop one, another will come. The rest of this sentence is so that you can work for the Lord. Like your talents are for the service. And then again, a testimony one. So when I looked at this, I was like, I don't know why I was so enthralled with this. These promises are bunk.
They're certainly not measurable, are they? I feel like this illustrates the point that nobody would do all this crap on the left unless it were true on the right.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't speak for everybody, but if you're a good Mormon and you're like, I take this seriously, I took it seriously. There was a point where I carried a backpack around with 10 or 12 Book of Mormons in it. And I tried to give one to any time I could get a conversation started about the church. There were lots of individuals who ended up joining the church that I played a significant role in. I think most members, not all, I think people have stories where they're like, hey, I tried, it never happened. That's fine. I think for a lot of members who are like, they really try and they try over lots of years, some conversions happen. You end up being the one who the missionaries take to the house to help teach somebody. So over the course of a couple of decades, I saw 10 or 12 people come into the church that I played a significant role in.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's normal. I don't think that's anything special. That's what happens in the Jehovah's Witnesses.
Mm-hmm.
That's what happens in Scientology. That's what happens in what's the soap MLM. Anyway,
like oils.
No, door-to-door sales. You join the MLM. You sign 3 people.
Amway.
Amway.
It
works. If you're passionate about Amway, you will convert people into Amway. That's just the nature of being excited about a product that you're selling.
It's a low risk prediction.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm done with this one. So I was fresh off this patriarchal blessing, and so I had a U.S. history class, and this is probably 7th grade. I lost the cover sheet, but I wrote all about Utah, like Mormons going to Utah. That was my subject, and my mission was I was going to convert my teacher with my beautiful words. So this is a quote of like a 13-ish year old. I really laid it on, and and then when I read it back a few days ago, like I'm a prophetess, because my last conclusion is the ability to change and adapt was the key factor in survival in Utah for the Mormons. And isn't that just the way they've hung in there ever since? They adapt and change.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, just about 20 years too late. But let me read this quote that's up here on the screen so everybody can hear it, okay? You wrote, "In a quiet grove, the sun made patterns through the leaves, while a steady breeze whistled through the trees. On that day, long ago, a young man knelt down, and arose a man with a purpose and a goal."
Beautiful.
That's amazing. Hey, and you know something? I just really want to use this also to underscore the fact that if you're outside the church, it's really hard to comprehend how much it is drilled into us that we are supposed to convert all the non-members, including teachers. Yes, you were precocious, definitely. But through this paper, you're going to do a paper about the Mormons going out to Utah, and your goal is to convert your teacher because he's got to read the paper.
Well, he didn't like it that much because I was very biased, and I said I think I don't have the grade, but I'm pretty sure I got a B.
No way. What an anti-Mormon you had for a teacher. That's persecution.
It wasn't that I was clearly biased.
This will not stand. We'll see you in court.
Or that I had terrible spelling. So I was still very active. This was my BFF, who I also had a crush on, but didn't understand what that was because there's no gay people in Mormonism, so I didn't know that I was gay. But I took her to like all of the stake dances. She was a good sport. She never became Mormon, but I was determined that I would convert her, and good for her. She never succumbed to my missionary tactics.
And she remained your friend anyway.
She did.
Yeah. Good on the people who continue to be the friends of Mormons, even as Mormons do the Mormon thing.
Yeah. I had the greatest group of friends. They were so tolerant of, I was like Hermione Granger. I was such the morality police, and they still loved me.
Were you also an insufferable little know-it-all?
I was 100%.
Okay. Just checking.
I had to do some professional coaching to get that out of me. And that's when I was in cheerleading, and underneath that skirt was the giant granny underwear because
So what happens when you do the Texas tea? That's what I've been wondering from the beginning.
Well, I would do jumps and stuff. I would be so paranoid, and sometimes my stuff would come out of my bloomers.
Okay, that sounds provocative.
Like there would be like some pink or green or blue.
Oh my God.
It was ridiculous.
Oh my God.
The underwear were bigger than the bloomer, so I had to tuck it in.
Okay, having a history in dance, not gymnastics, but dance. I mean, I just can't imagine being able to move without being petrified that something's going to happen and be revealed that I don't want to be revealed.
Well, that was I think my parents' concern, that they wanted to make sure everything was covered because they knew what I was doing. So they're like, back up. But anyway, let's see.
Did you ever ditch your underwear and then put it back? I'm talking about the bloomer underwear, and then put it back on after a performance.
Oh no, I would have never disobeyed like that.
Oh.
No.
I think some people might have.
No, I didn't even cross my mind to do that.
Wow. Is this the first time right now tonight you're even thinking about it because I brought it up?
I never thought to just go without.
Okay.
And I was an overachiever.
Oh.
So yeah, this is my seminary graduation. I wanted to get all the check marks. I did scripture bowl, all the stuff. And this is a picture. I cut out all the people, but this was from a youth conference, which as a mother, now this terrifies me. I saw this picture and I hadn't seen it in forever. And I was like, oh my gosh, my parents sent me to some unknown member's house in another town.
Early in the morning. Oh yeah, I was gonna say seminary, but go ahead.
No.
This is a special conference, right?
Yeah. So it was like 2 or 3 days and we just all went to this other members' houses to stay. And I'm like, I would never do that. But we had no question. Of course, we wouldn't have gotten assaulted and we didn't, but I'm sure
Mormons would never do anything bad. Just ask Ted Bundy.
Exactly.
There is sort of a distortion of what a safe boundary is and an unsafe boundary, and we just assume that's a Mormon. It's a Mormon thing they're going to. It's going to be the safest place in the world. Where else should my kid be? This is where the church wants my kid to be.
Mm-hmm. But yeah,
and 99 times out of 100, that's true.
Yeah.
And it's not just the Mormons, and the world is a dangerous place. So I think we've covered all of our bases now with the caveats.
Yes, yes, but safe boundaries aren't there to protect the 99.
No, 100%. Like nothing happened. Everything was above board. But if like the brother that was our host, like asked me to go into the den to talk to him, I would have totally done it.
Sure.
Okay.
Yep.
What's the next one here?
So you got your award for the New Testament studies.
Yep. And I graduated with seminary. So somewhere between that last photo of me being a seminary graduate and like Laurel class president,
somewhere in there,
I lost my way. I started dating somebody that my parents hated, which I loved that. And I was very rebellious. But I say very rebellious, but only in a Mormon context. I was, again, so mild.
It's a sliding scale.
Yeah. And I had 2 kids, like I said, right away. I had an experience. So when I was going through this time, I actually had a really good friend that was Baptist, and my biological father is Baptist or Southern Baptist. So I was very interested because I'm like, my husband had never been really religious, never Mormon. He thought that Mormons were a bunch of weirdos and he didn't want to go to that church. And I was like, well, if we go to a different church, he'll make him a better person. And so I could be satisfied with that. And so I went to the Baptist church one time and it felt just like Mormon church, except because it wasn't my church, it was so foreign, and all the things that were so similar turned me off. I'm like, this is just a cheap version of Mormonism. And of course, they got all my information, and then they started sending people to our house. They showed up my work. They were very aggressive trying to convert us. And at one point I asked, because the only reason that my husband was really interested in joining that church was to shut me up, I think, about church. And then also he thought that he could keep drinking. And in Mormonism, you can't. So I straight up asked the people that were coming around, I'm like, do you believe in drinking or is it a band? And they're like, actually, no, we don't drink. And they're like, but we don't say that part in the beginning. We want to just get you in. And
they told you that?
Yeah. Because I was
these
talking
guys
to
are rookies. That's a rookie error. You don't tell them that.
You don't say the quiet things out loud. That's what Mormonism is good at. It gets you in before it lets you know all these things you'll need to do.
I served the mission. I know this stuff.
And I was pregnant still at this time with my first baby. So I was like, still really like, I've been disowned from my family. Like,
so that was what you wanted to hear. So you could tell your husband now that, hey, you can lay off the Baptists because ultimately they're going to tell you, you can't drink anyway, just like the Mormons.
But I don't remember if I told him, but I had this in my head. And then I was like, okay, well, I don't need you. Like, I already have a church he doesn't want to join. Like, but then they came over again and I was upstairs. We were like in a townhouse. So there was like, it's tiny, but there was upstairs, and they came in and they were talking to him in the living room downstairs. And I was really big and pregnant. And I was like, I don't even want to deal with you guys, whatever, you can talk to him. But then I heard them trying to bully him into praying and accepting Jesus while I was upstairs. And then big and pregnant, I came flying down those stairs and I was like, get the hell out of my house. You are
There'll
not
be no
doing
accepting
this.
Jesus in my home.
You are not doing this. That's not. I took my butt back to church. I was like, nope. I went back and I doubled down, tripled down.
Yes.
You knew what spiritual pressure looked like. You'd been experiencing it all your life. You knew that didn't feel good.
You know, it's so easy for those Baptists because all you have to do is get somebody to accept Jesus and you've made it into the end zone. You've scored and you can never get them out. There's no callback from that.
No, there's a date, and you proclaim it the rest of your life, and it doesn't matter what happens from that point forward.
It's done. Mormonism is more difficult. You have to go through like 6 discussions. Jehovah's Witnesses is even harder. But so now you're in a situation where, well, what? And you're in Texas now, right? With the
no, I was in
Aggressive
California
Baptist?
still.
Aggressive Baptists in California.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Where in California? I want to stay away from
that was in Redding.
Redding. Okay. Northern
Mm-hmm.
California. All right.
Okay. I think I read the next one. So, yep. And I talk about my repentance and everything, how I doubled down and endured to the end, which brought us to this glorious place where we were all sealed in the temple. This was the only time that my ex-husband went to the temple. He thought it was crazy, but he wore his garments.
Portland.
Mm-hmm.
So your ex, okay, but the guy you were married to at the time, this is the same guy as in the prior picture?
Mm-hmm.
So he joined the church ultimately.
We had a very rough time. He decided that because he had gotten baptized a few years before during the war. He was overseas and he got baptized. And I thought it was a miracle conversion. And then we had some trouble, and he was like, I am going to be a good Mormon. And for like 9 months, he really knocked it out of the park. And I was like, I've arrived. And this culminated in this day. And then it just kind of deteriorated after that. He just became a Jack Mormon.
Oh, but this day was the day you went to the Portland temple and you were all sealed together as a family.
Yes.
Forever.
Yes. And so finally I was so happy for myself, but I was so happy for my mother because this is what she wanted.
Mm-hmm.
I was very happy, and she was
Your mom's
there.
the one taking the picture?
I think that one of the matrons took this in the little garden area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And my mom and my sister made that dress for me, and I just, like, I can't get rid of it. It made me so happy that they made me this temple thing. Like, they had to, of course, adjust the pattern so it'd be worthy to go to the temple, but kind of ruined the look of it, but whatever.
Yeah. So a glorious day, but then the storm swept in.
Yep. So this is just my bona fides of being Mormon. So I did scouts for a long time. I loved it. One of the cracks in my shelf, though, was they tried to call me to be the scoutmaster of the Cub Scouts in this ward. And that riled me up so much because I had a husband that was, not active. And I thought the scout program was like the catch-all for all of those boys that needed a priesthood holder in their life. And I was like, how dare you ask me to be the leader that these boys need? They need a man. They need a priesthood holder. And that was like, I think the only calling I ever turned down was that scoutmaster. I was so adamant. And now I'm like,
because these are Cub Scouts. These are Cub Scouts, right? Not
Mm-hmm.
Boy Scouts.
Yeah.
Okay. Was there a part of you that thought that your husband should have been called and that might have helped him get active again?
Yeah, they did try to call him to stuff, and then he would just kind of be like, "Oh," I just pushed me into it. Like one time, he was supposed to give a talk, and like literally right before sacrament started, he's like, "I'm not giving it. You give it."
What happened?
I am a good public speaker. It was fine.
So you gave the talk.
Yeah.
Okay. But these Boy Scouts, I mean, I love the pictures. They look like they're having a great time. And I'm getting the idea you were is it called a den mother? Is that what it used to be called?
Yeah, I was like the den leader.
Is it called a den leader now?
Yeah.
Okay, I was in Cub Scouts. I got to the noble rank of Bobcat. That was it for me. So Bobcat, very difficult to become a Bobcat in Boys and Cub Scouts for any of those who don't know. It's like the highest rank there, the noble Bobcat. But they look like they're having a great time, like you're having a great time, and that you're a great den leader.
I loved it. I had so much fun with those boys. We did all kinds of stuff. And I, grew up kind of redneck. So I already knew how to do a lot of this stuff to help them get their badges and stuff. So it was fun.
Well, that's wonderful. I always think it's a minor miracle. I know we're speaking past tense because the church has divorced itself from the scouting programs, but I just always thought it was a miracle when an LDS troop group, whatever you want to call it, could actually follow the program, as opposed to just having to meet together once a week and play basketball. You know what I'm talking about?
I do. We never did. We did our stuff.
Yes, you did. You did the program, and I don't mean the church program. I mean the Cub Scout program.
Yeah. And this is just like, hey, I just have this anxiety that people don't really believe that I was an actual TBM. I was, like, as evidenced by my Mormon tourism with my sister and my knee shorts and love guns
and training with firearms.
Yeah. So this is when 2017. This is right before I moved to Idaho. And I talk about this in the book that I was voting that day on the left in front of the Texas flag. And that was the 2016 election. And that's when I had a major break because I had always been super conservative, but I could not stomach voting for Trump. And that was the first time that I had ever gone against like the dictates of like Mormonism to that degree. Like, it's not acceptable to vote for a Democrat. And I did. And I almost lost my mind. And then
but it was a secret, right?
Pardon?
A secret vote, right? Did you tell anybody?
I burned my Republican registration card on Facebook that night live.
Sounds like you told some people.
I told everybody. I was disgusted.
What happened?
I couldn't believe that the same people that like I had respected so much that were for family values and respect of women would want somebody, because like the whole grab them by the kitty cat came out like right before the election. And I was just like, I can't vote for this man. He has no values. I don't care if he's good for business or whatever. And I was very political. So it was a huge deal for me to break from. I was a ticket down the line voter.
Let me be more specific in my question. What'd your family and friends say and do when you did this online?
Well, we don't talk about it.
This is Mormonism Live.
Some people are very.
If you don't want to talk about it, let me be clear. If you don't want to talk about it, that's fine.
I think so. The people, my parents were not pleased, but they just don't talk about it. Just like my mom hasn't talked about this book to me.
Oh, they're saying that nobody talked about it, and that they're not talking about it was evident that they weren't talking about it.
Yeah, I also produced a movie about. It was a short film with one of my friends, one of the people, the black gentleman that was in the cheer photo. He's an actor and producer and stuff in LA. And we made a movie and I was associate producer and it was about like political stuff. And I thought that people would be super supportive because they love like Hollywood and movies and everything, but they're like, you just do whatever you want, but I don't support that. I was like, okay. So we kind of just don't talk about it. But this picture in Disney was my husband, the kid's father was there with us, but he ghosted us this day. So we ended up taking this photo without him. And that trip and everything really, again, those things so close together started pushing my thoughts of like stopping to make excuses for everybody and starting to believe, just like believing in Christ, starting to believe what people were doing rather than what they were saying.
Is this Disneyland or Disney World?
Disney World.
And you were there. And what time was it of the year? Was it 16, 17?
It was like we went Christmas break. So it was like right over the New Year's.
Okay. So why does your husband ghost you?
I still don't know. It was the last day, and he picked a fight and then just stormed off and then didn't talk to me for like 3 days.
Okay. So the importance of that wasn't why he did it. It was that you were done making excuses. How did that manifest itself vis-a-vis your husband ghosting you and you not making any excuses for him anymore?
Because for one of the first times, it was so blatant that a grown-up, even if they were having feelings, and we weren't fighting or anything, we were having a lovely trip. And the fact that he made it miserable the rest of the time for everyone. And I'm like, no adult that loves his wife and family would do this. And so it seemed like kind of a small thing compared to everything else. But I was like, and I talked to one of my sisters about it. And that was the first time I had admitted that there was not everything was perfect, Mormon perfect in my life.
Okay. So you decided you weren't going to make excuses. Is it making excuses or is it tolerating it?
I think it's called enabling. And
so you came to think that you were enabling that behavior and you weren't going to enable it anymore?
Yeah.
So then he becomes soon to be your ex-husband after this trip.
Mm-hmm. About a year later, like 18 months later.
Okay.
Just a side note, this has nothing to do with the conversation, but I'll pass it on because I think it's useful to a large chunk of the audience as they sometime during their life plan a trip to Disney World or Disneyland. Disneyland is easy to remember where it goes to, and Disney World is easy to remember because Disneyland has LA for Los Angeles. Disney World has ORL for Orlando. So for anybody out there who wants to know that Disney World is Orlando, Florida, Disneyland is in California, and that's how you remember them.
That's amazing. Right. I remember it because I was 12 when Disney World opened.
Yeah. Well, there's that. Okay.
We can move on.
Yep.
So I left Mormonism. And so something interesting, I think most people experience this when they leave.
And just FYI, Carrie, part of this is we're at 8:02. I just want to give you the heads up if there's anything we can sort of skim through, but I don't want you to cut short anything that's important.
Okay. This is pretty fast. Basically I was completely consumed with my Mormon duties, and all of a sudden I didn't have them. I had lots of time and I didn't want to feel the feelings I was having. I didn't want to think about Mormonism. And so I had no healthy coping skills. So I ran marathons. I was an activist. I drank everything I could, deliciously. And that was in LA. And I just filled up my time with other things. And so it delayed that deconstruction that I still had to do. And we can go to the next one. I think it's really common. These are some of the books I threw away from my collection of Mormon things. And then I have on here my baptism into Catholicism. And a lot of people didn't understand why I became Catholic. And so I do want to spend just a little bit of time. I never really believed, oh, the Catholicism, that is the truth. But I thought maybe it could be when, but I wanted a few things. I wanted to understand actual Christianity. And so I learned everything I could, and I went through the whole year process of becoming a Catholic. And I also I didn't want to just leave the church. I wanted there to be no way that people would even think that I would come back. I didn't want pressure. I wanted like a firewall. And I was like, there's nothing more powerful than joining the horror of the world, of the devil. And so I was very interested in doing that, and I did. But Catholicism,
You became a Catholic because Mormons hate them the most.
Partly, yes.
Okay.
But I also got so much out of it. So Catholicism, of course, has adopted things. I think you guys talked about this the other day. Like, it has adopted parts, and it has changed, and it came from Jewish religion first, and so to me, and because my ancestors were Catholic, and so I kind of wanted to understand their life experience and what they believed. So it was kind of connecting back in a way that was not just like, I'm going to put their name for someone to baptize them. It felt very visceral. And then I learned all of the things, like all of the things that people like, you're not really Christian. And I get so mad. I was able to understand why they said that. And I just learned a ton. And even though I am not a practicing Catholic, I never really completely was converted in my heart. I have really good experience with that. And I value all of that study that I did. It really helped.
When you were saying about, you understood about people not calling them Christians, were you talking about why
Mormons.
People called Mormons non-Christians?
Mm-hmm.
And you learned that through the Catholics you were studying with?
I learned why, because I always thought, of course, Mormonism is Christian. And I didn't understand why it wasn't considered Christian, because I didn't really understand actual religious history and doctrine. So, and I'm not a theologian or anything like that, but I do understand a lot more now.
The pause there, somewhat awkward though it was me considering and then discarding the idea of going into the subject of why it is the Catholics don't consider Mormons to be Christian for another day then.
I'd be happy, because I went through this a whole, I had to get my marriage annulled to my husband. So my first husband, just to become Catholic. And there was the whole process. So I have a whole bunch to talk about that too.
Yeah.
But we can go to the next.
Who's the person standing behind you? I can figure out who the guy is putting the water on your head. What?
The woman right there,
yes.
The sweater holding my shoulder, that's my sponsor. And so it's like my godmother, but when you're adult, you have a sponsor. So she was Catholic, and she went with me to all of my meetings, and she was one of my friends.
Every member a missionary. There it is. All right. By the way, I just want to mention so that you can address it as you talk about this photo on the left, but it occurs to me that you're back to a short haircut in a haircut story earlier of your hair being cut. It was a very negative story, but I have a hunch that this story is sort of some self-reclamation.
It was. I loved having the short hair. Yeah. And it is so interesting because it was not pleasing. The parentals were not pleased with his choice. Yeah, but I rocked it for a while. Then I grew my hair back out. But I just as I did in Mormonism, I went hard. I was published. I listened to Catholic lectures, apologists, read tons of books. I went hard. We can go. Yep. And then I call this part my purgatory party, because I think it's really natural when you leave something that's very high control, that the immediate freedom that you have feels so good. And like you guys were saying, you get, kind of like the Matrix. You're just booted out a full-grown adult without any concept of like how to adult, without the blueprints. And I needed a mission because I had been so mission driven my entire life, but the Mormonism had given me my mission and goals and what to work for.
Right.
And so I was already a nurse, and I was already passionate about like patient advocacy and nurse advocacy and everything. So I leaned hard into that. And you can go to the next slide. I was a dean at a nursing school in Boise. I opened a nursing school there.
Wait a second. You opened a nursing school?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Color me impressed.
That was, yeah, we opened in 2020. So it was in the middle of the pandemic. It was really challenging. But in that job, I met, the guy in the green shirt. His name is Nurse Blake, and he's a nurse influencer. And this is the purgatory part. So I got sucked right back into controlling relationships, controlling workplaces. And so you know that I grew up in a trailer and was kind of poor, and I had been pretty successful through my life and always had what we needed. But then this guy that just has this crazy lifestyle wanted me to come and be his vice president of operations and be in charge of education for these nursing conferences that he wanted to do. And I bought in hard to this because I believed in his mission of supporting nurses in this unique way. And so what we did was we chartered whole cruise ships for like 3,000 people. And we had fantastic nursing conferences that had like drag queens and shows and talent contests and stellar education. And people loved it. And so like as a Mormon in that high demand, high control group, I was like a bottom level, but in this group, I was the very top. And now I really feel I have kind of a window into what it feels like to be at that top of that pyramid, and how it's really easy, even though your entry point is usually altruistic, which mine was. I really wanted to help and I believed his mission. But you can get really enticed with like first class tickets, and you're traveling all over the world, and you're hobnobbing with fancy people and company leaders and everything. And there's booze at your meetings, and your part of your job is to vacation and do assessments for future things. And there was things that were unethical that I found myself starting to dismiss because I really believed in the mission. And also I got all these perks. And I'm like, my life's so good. I'm getting a good wage. I travel. But at some point, even this, I realized I am part of this high control, high demand and group again, but I am the one that's like pushing it on people because I'm a good salesperson because I was Mormon. Mm-hmm. And I exited very publicly from that.
In fast and testimony meeting?
Well, I quit, and then I posted on everywhere that I withdrew my support because I had used my reputation as a professional to boost him up and make him a ton of money. But just like in Mormonism, it wasn't all bad. That cute girl there sitting next to me,
sunglasses?
Yeah. So her name's Elizabeth, and that's my wife. And we met through that job, and we became friends. And eventually, she became my wife.
Awesome.
Now, yeah.
It's been a sort of a journey of self-discovery and figuring out who you are. And suddenly throughout that journey, so at some point you felt permission to be your authentic self.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
it's also a journey of good things coming out of horrible situations.
Which almost, if we're aware and we make it through the thing, almost always there's some good that comes through the bad things that happen to us as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this, so I did have a journey of self-discovery, and in my book, I talk more about that. I'd love potentially to talk about open relationships, swinging, polyamory, all of that, because that was my fun experience with second husband.
Oh, you should call in on Mormonism After Dark for that.
Yeah, we'd love that conversation for that show.
I think it's more appropriate for that one.
Yeah.
But I mean, look at this. My ex-husband posted this. All the signs were there that I was not that interested in men. And then this last photo is just.
He's posting. Carrie looks way more excited about this. You know, the leg from A Christmas Story, the leg lamp. Okay.
And then these are my sisters at the one in the middle, her wedding, and I just love them, and through everything we're just still besties.
Awesome.
Did you say?
And I'm the short one. I am the oldest, but I was the runt.
And those are all your sisters, and it's the one in the middle who's getting married this day.
Mm-hmm.
Now, who's still active in the church?
Just the one in the headband.
Headband on the left.
Left.
Yes. Very modest. Okay.
I think some of them were Mormon still, but they have left since. And they're in the comments so they can speak for themselves.
Oh, great. Wonderful. Wonderful. Maybe they'll call in, because we're going to have 3 phone calls at the end of the show.
Yeah. And I will put the phone line up, 662-667-6667 or 662 Mormons. You can also join. I'll put the link in. Don't use that link there, but I will put a link in the chat if somebody wants to come into the studio to have a conversation. So in the live chat right now, you'll see that link posted. Feel free to come in if you have a question about Carrie's journey or a question about the book. Carrie, tell us about the book itself. Goodbye, Magic Undies. We've gotten the journey, so we sort of establish the street cred as a Mormon. Spend a few minutes telling us about what the book is, who the audience, who the intended audience is, and where folks can find the book. Obviously, I see Amazon, but I'm sure it's in other places as well.
Well, right now it's just on Amazon for the first 3 months. They get exclusive because I published through them as a self-publisher. So right now it's just on Amazon, and this book is not for critics. So it's for whoever, but mostly I think and one of the reasons, I mean, I reverse virtue signaled, so more like active Mormons can just steer clear if they're not ready for the Magic Undies. That's fine to say goodbye to them. But this is for people that are in that liminal space that kind of need a soft landing, that just need to see that their story is so similar. I was very open with things that a lot of people might not be, about like swinging and just the different things, because I want people to be able to see themselves. And we've had enough shame in our lives. Why are we ashamed of just being human? So that is the audience. And then people that are, maybe they are out, because I really didn't do a great job. When I first left, I wanted to proselytize my family out of Mormonism, and that was really hurtful for everyone. And so trying to help other people kind of see how they can talk to their family without breaking those relationships necessarily.
How'd you do?
How did I do? Well, in my family or in the book?
In your family, not breaking those relationships.
My mom is still very active, like temple worker, and I know she struggles because the church tells her to distance herself from me and not like have me visit her house with my wife and all the things that they do. So it's a struggle, but we still have a relationship.
How does that make you feel about going public? Although apparently you do most things public. How does it make you feel about going public on a promotional tour of a book that you wrote titled Goodbye Magic Undies?
I actually had this book completed over a year ago, and I struggled for a year knowing that I would lose, because even though I'm in Eastern Washington, there's a lot of Mormons in medicine. And so I work with a lot of Mormons. I take care of a lot of Mormons, and I was afraid of the trust being eroded by being public about this with my patients, with my colleagues. So that was a factor. And also, like, I love my family. And so the ones that are still active Mormons, I know this hurts them. And I still did it because I couldn't live with myself. Like, I didn't want to die without fulfilling this part of my life. I really wanted to do it. So I did.
Very good.
I was trying to find, I've been working on something where I'm gathering different quotes and things from Mormonism. And I was trying to find the one I had, because you said something about, family is told to disconnect. And that's what the very quote says. We've talked before about D. Todd Christofferson and the talk he gives, where he sort of shames the Amish for shunning their members as they leave. And then he tells the Mormons to shun the Mormons who leave.
That was a great talk.
Such a strange thing. But I had a quote here from an LDS leader. I don't have it in front of me. I was hoping to find it. I'll try to find it before the show's over. But he says that very thing. It was a 70 who gave a talk, and it was a conference talk. And he tells the members to disconnect from anybody who criticizes the church. I think I maybe showed it maybe on the newscast or something too. But I think it's this weird thing that we send missionaries, Mormons, we send missionaries out into the world to knock on a door and to tell you that your beliefs are wrong, our beliefs are right. And then the same group asks its members to disconnect from anybody who does that back towards them. And I think it's such a strange thing. And by the way, I think the theme of the underwear is such a big thing. This church tells you what underwear to wear, and it tells you how, it doesn't anymore, but I'm talking about the next thing I'm going to say. It tells you how loud to laugh.
Yes.
RFM and I and you, we all made promises not to laugh loudly. Like, that's a crazy thing. Our religious system made us under covenant promise not to ever laugh loudly. And it told us that we had to wear its underwear. That's sort of crazy. So picking sort of this taboo, intimate, personal thing, I thought was really bold, and I thought was really a great way to sort of wrap the book around an idea. So kudos to you.
Thank you. And I had one of my Sunday school teachers, I remember when I was in high school, because I love laughing and I just think I'm really funny and I like cutting up. And he like, in the Sunday school class, he basically gave the temple speech about loud laughter and everything, but I didn't know that because I hadn't been through yet. And I was like, what is wrong with this dude? But then when I went to the temple, I'm like,
now I get it. I think there's a song from Mary Poppins about that.
What is that?
I love to laugh.
Yes. Yeah. So, and the one thing from my patriarchal blessing that actually did come true was that one talent, once I master that, another one will come.
Yeah, that would never happen if you weren't a faithful Mormon.
Right. It's just not how life works. But you want to go to this last slide. Yes. So me and my wife is a nurse also. She also has a doctorate in nursing. Her past career has all been mental health. I'm a a nurse practitioner, or I'm an advanced practice nurse. And I've been a mentor, college level, like all different types. I've coached people in all different capacities. And also we put on these awesome events for nurses, and we know how to like program all these different things. And so I found my new passion besides writing is we made this business. We're taking coaching clients for that deconstruction phase, but also our plan is that anybody can steal this idea, because if you have capital for it, I completely support it. I'll come and I'll pay a ticket if you do this instead of me. But I want to do retreats that means something. And I love like Thrive. Actually, from Marmon, I like met you, I think, at a Thrive event in Seattle in 2023. I think you had just started dating Wendy, and I met you there. And we went to dinner. I was hanging out with John Larson.
Oh, sure.
Anyway,
See, that's terrible. I remember John. No, I do remember. Of course, now I remember you.
It's fine if you don't, but
yeah, like he was hanging out with John Larson.
I was. Him and Kimmy. I was like, oh, I need to know everything about you. But anyway, I love Thrive. I love that kind of format, but I think there's a place for other formats. And like, I'm very interested in psychedelics, ketamine treatments, like other kinds of experiences, teaching people how to drink safely. We just are launched out into the world without the natural, like when we're adolescents, we have natural limitations on us. Our parents, we don't have money. Maybe we can't drive. We have these safety barriers while we're learning how to adult. And you don't have those when all of a sudden you decide, well, now I can have sex. Now I can drink. Now I can do all these things. And you don't have those guardrails.
I don't ski. I had one fateful day, a really bad day back in high school, never again after that. But aren't the really dangerous, what do you call them, routes downhill? Are they called black diamonds?
Black diamonds, yeah.
Okay, so it's like now we got the skis on. We're doing black diamond runs without any training on the bunny slope.
Yep, that's exactly. So I'm really interested in doing that in the future. And that's where I am right now.
And that's your idea for the name of it is Celestial
Salamander.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'll put that back up for just a second. And I did find the quote, by the way. It's our good friend, L. Whitney Clayton. So I sort of suspected it would be from one of the 70s that sort of has a reputation for being a jerk. But L. Whitney Clayton says we should disconnect immediately and completely from listening to the proselytizing efforts. Right there. Does he want us to do the opposite? Notice, by the way, what is that called?
Double standard?
Well, special pleading to an extent as well. Like you're pleading that my example is different than your example.
Mm-hmm.
So we should disconnect immediately and completely from listening to the proselytizing efforts of those who lost their faith and instead reconnect promptly to the Holy Spirit. But would he want the people on the other side of the door that the missionaries are knocking on to do the same thing? No, he wouldn't. The adversary sees spiritual apathy, half-hearted obedience as opportunities to encircle us with his chains and bind us, and he hopes to destroy us. We escape his chains as we voluntarily choose to bind ourselves instead to God. It is a double standard. It is special pleading. It's a crazy thing that Mormonism does.
Yeah. It's one thing to read God's mind, but what do you say about a guy who can read Satan's mind?
Yeah, there's that. All right. I want to give you a chance. We're going to go to phone calls. But I want to give you a chance to sort of say anything else you want to say about your journey in the book, and otherwise we'll take the calls if there's nothing else, Carrie.
Well, I wanted to share one last little thing that I just think is so weird and awesome. So I don't know, and you didn't grow up and you're not a female. So, but females, at least when I was little, I'm like, you don't have to show that.
Oh, gosh,
sorry. You go to activity day girls before you become a young woman. Okay. So I don't know if in the comments people remember going to activity day girls, and I don't know if it's still a thing, but in my little branch, there was just me and my age group. And so my activity day girl experience was going to an older sister's home, and she taught me how to sew and make crafts and stuff. But she would always watch Love Boat. And so we would watch an episode of Love Boat, and I would learn how to sew, and it was great. Do you have questions, RFM?
Oh, this is reruns.
Yes.
It's not Saturday night.
It was back in the 80s. I was young, so okay. I don't know if it was on originally.
It wasn't Saturday night at 10 o'clock, was it?
No, it was like in the afternoon. It's probably syndicated reruns.
Yeah. Okay, but that sounds like a nice program. That's to have an activity day, have you or a young girl go see an older woman who might not have much purpose otherwise and teaching something of use.
Yeah, it was really sweet. I did. And I still sew. So, it was fine. But I just think it's really a weird circle that I met my wife on a cruise ship and we fell in love decades later. It's just such a nice circle. Life just gives you those little gifts sometimes.
Love it. Love it. Okay, I see Kendall down below. Kendall, we'll get to you in just a second. I think we've got a family member here on. You have a sister named Sharon. I'm sorry, Sharon.
Yeah, Sharon. Yep.
All right, let me see if I can make this work. Sharon, are you there? Hello? Okay, give me a second. If you're there.
Like this is your life, and Bill Reel is Ralph Edwards.
Yeah, something like that.
That's your sister, Sharon.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now, Sharon. Go ahead.
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right, go ahead, Sharon.
So I just want to say how amazing. Carrie was, I am the fourth youngest in the family, and I'm the redhead that was in that picture in the wedding. And I just got to say that Carrie is an amazing person, and she was didn't even go into all the details of just how much work she put into this book. And I can tell you, because I have been a non-practicing Mormon for over 20 years, and it was definitely a struggle when she first started sending over some of the chapters for our sisters to kind of review and look at. And she left a lot of stuff on the editor's floor for one reason or another, as she was progressing through her own journey. But I got to say that just reading her book, which I sat and read all in one session after she was getting it published, and it actually impacted me more than she will ever know, just because you don't realize when you are so deep in those situations where you are very poor, where you have a very heavily military upbringing, and also, the very heavily influenced multiple times a week church situations that you have to be involved in. Like, everything was centered on that in our lives, and to try to break out of that is so difficult. And even after I didn't practice for many, many years and had my own kids and, marry people outside of the church and such, it still was so difficult for me even to accept that there was something that was, not correct with how I was brought up. And I was very grateful that she kind of like opened up and brought that forward, because I feel like there's so many people out there, as I'm coming into this whole new world that she's kind of brought up for me, that can definitely benefit from seeing how those high pressure situations and relationships really do impact everything you do.
Thank you. Thank you, sister. You're a ringer. Thanks for calling.
Love you.
Take it easy.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's nice. How nice that your sister calls in and has good things to say, and apparently you made a big difference in her life, and this book has impressed her.
Yes, my goal has already been met. Writing and publishing this book, because it has affected my personal circle so profoundly. Of course, I would love to sell a bunch of copies so that I could fund this new enterprise, but my goals have already been met. I'm completely satisfied.
How long did it take you to write the book, Carrie?
This is a bit of like Dr. Sweet's monster. Like, I started writing this book about actually my professional journey, being a woman and accomplishing the things that I did. And it was supposed to end. I was married to the second husband, and he wanted me to be a trad wife, which I was very comfortable being raised Mormon. And I almost totally went into that. But at some point I wrote a lot of that book, which the ending would be, I accomplished all this stuff, but look, I'm so happy being a trad wife and taking care of these 9 kids. But at some point writing it, it felt so inauthentic. And I was like, I have to write the book that's inside me. And so,
how far along were you when you made that realization?
very far.
Is this like the story of Brigham Young tearing out the limestone foundation for the Salt Lake Temple and substituting
Yes.
granite?
Yeah, I would say yes.
Did you have to scrap the whole thing and start over?
Almost everything.
Mm-mm-mm. Well, kudos to you for staying true to yourself and writing the book that was your story.
Also to underscore, okay, because it's just so fascinating to me. So many things that you do are so emblematic of the Mormon experience, which is there are two stories that every Mormon has. And one is the story that the church tells them they're supposed to be. And the other story is how they want to be.
Mhm. Yes.
Yeah, that's a very Mormon thing, isn't it? We all feel, when you share the gospel with your neighbor, when you go to church on Sunday wearing your Sunday best, when everything you do in Mormonism is to present an image that reflects the good name of the church and is almost never really your opportunity to just be yourself. So kudos to you for taking it.
Yeah.
All right. Our final visit for the night will be Kendall. Kendall, how are you?
Hey, doing well. Really like the cast.
I love it. Love it. What do you got for us tonight, my friend? What's your thoughts?
Well, I have 3 questions. I'll start with the most important. We don't have to get out to all of them, but I was just skimming over Carrie's book, and I really, really resonate with uncovering the psychological tactics, reclaiming agency, finding reality. Finding reality is like my thing right now. I left the church 2 years ago. So my first question is, in your journey, writing about this, doing all this stuff, Carrie, like what is the smallest thing that would make the biggest difference to those goals of like reclaim agency, find reality, like as it relates to replacing old LDS beliefs with better ones that actually in reality work?
I think the first and probably the most important thing is to be prepared to forgive yourself for all the things that you did and not bring in all of that guilt and I should have done this. And you're going to, but try to let that go, because when you make room to give yourself the grace and give yourself permission to be like, okay with, I really effed up how I raised my kids in a lot of ways. But I'm not going to let that stop me from moving forward and being better and just apologizing where you need to. I apologized to my ex-husband for all of the crazy Mormon pressure I put on him, even though I really don't like him very much, but I apologized because I wanted to own. So I owned my part of it. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, the forgiveness, the self-compassion, that resonates. Yeah, it's hard for me personally. I still, kind of am in the stage where like, oh, I should have seen this earlier. I should have known better. But you're absolutely right. That is just not a helpful belief.
Kendall, can I help you with that?
Compassion.
Can I help you with that, Kendall?
Please.
No matter the fact that you look back and you ask yourself that question, I think the fact of the matter is you could not have seen it any earlier.
No. And I kept getting, and I still could be sucked into a high demand, high control situation. But like my therapist, because I was so mad at myself. I was like, I got into another relationship like that. I got into another organization like that. And I'm like, why am I so dumb? And she's like, you're not dumb. You recognized it faster and faster every time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's my second question. Like, to what extent do these organizations, I'm really uncomfortable with like controversial opinions, but this one, like, I really think there's a there, but you wrote the book, so I'm asking you, to what extent do these organizations infantilize their members? And as people that care about them, like, are there any seeds that you like can drop that are helpful to these people to kind of, maybe, not necessarily wake up and leave, but just like not allow these organizations to make them so disempowered and so dependent?
I think the way that I really started to recognize how controlled I was and how I wasn't really in control of my life. I can't even say that I gave over that power. I was never given that power because I was raised in the church. I watched every Scientology documentary. I watched all the Aftermath stuff with Leah Remini. It's so much easier to see that. And that's one of the reasons I wrote my book about all the different types of situations, because you can see it so much more easily when it's someone else. You can always see that your sister's dating the wrong dude, but you can't see it for yourself.
Totally. Yep. Yeah, I watched Getting Clear recently, and I was like, this is so obvious. But, like at the same time, I was like, oh, I'm being a hypocrite because it wasn't obvious to me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I don't know if we have time, but my last question is kind of on that same vein. But, how do you know? Because I really do miss some things from, an organization telling me things. I didn't have to work out so many things. And kind of the hardest question I'm dealing with is it was so clear to know that I was a good person in the church. Like they were just like, do these 8 to 12 things and you're a good person, you're heaven bound, you're celestial, you're worthy to go to the temple. But outside of it, how do you, Carrie, have confidence? I'm a good person. How do you answer that question and have confidence in your own answer?
Well, that is just the easiest question. So I don't know how many people have seen Hunger Games at all or read the books, but when one of the main characters, PETA, he gets captured and tortured and brainwashed, and then he's back with his people, and for the rest of his life he checks in with Katniss and is like, real or unreal, this is what I'm thinking. And he's looking for someone to be like, am I still thinking with my Mormon brain? Well, for him, it's the capital brainwashing. And so I do that. I check in with myself all the time. I validate, okay, what are my motivations? I'm an overthinker, so probably don't take this advice.
No,
but I check in. And I think that listening to other stories, other testimonies really helps to kind of check in. And then just it's a lot of work. I actually had a whole breakdown where I called John Larson because I don't even know, there's no point to life. I was completely down a nihilism hole, and he really helped me to take stock of what is important to me. And he challenged me because I was like, my kids are most important. And he's like, are they? Because you're not spending time with them. You're working all the time. And I was like, well, maybe they're not the most important. Maybe I just think that. And so really challenging myself. Also, I go to therapy all the time and I'm on medication. So any of those things also help.
Yeah, it's sad for me. I go to therapy and that has helped the most. But I really, it's because of the same thing of me being in the church. It's external validation. It's some authority saying, okay, Kendall, you're good. You're good. And I really want to be able to break that, but I feel like my programming is so deep.
Well, read Dr. Hassan's book,
Freedom of Mind. Yeah. That is what gave me confidence to be leaving is the right thing to do. There was a period of 4 months where I was like, well, the community's good. Maybe it is the best way to raise my son. But after I read Stephen Hassan, I was like, oh my gosh, they do 30 things where they are literally brainwashing you, controlling you, making you have all this guilt and shame, and keeping you in the organization, like you say in your book, with thought-stopping cliches and all these things that I didn't have eyes to see, but now I do. So excellent suggestion. Love that.
Kendall, can I offer one other thing that's just been super helpful to me? It's a book called The Critical Journey, Stages in Life of Faith. And what they're doing is just helping a person. This is nothing to do with Mormonism at all. This is just sort of walking somebody from the egocentric, black and white worldview into nuance and gray, and helping somebody see sort of the science behind how the brain cognitively develops through all of that. And it was a great little science side anchor to have while I was working my way through a bunch of the religious deception and rhetoric and all the Mormon things. It was sort of a place that I could solidly look to and go, no matter what Mormonism tries to do manipulating me, this is how smart, wise people in the psychology side of things understand what why we're easy to be manipulated by religions in those early stages, why we're angry in those middle stages, and how we reclaim sort of a peace of mind and our own individual autonomy on the backside. So
Oh my gosh, you totally sold it.
highly recommend The
Sounds
Critical
perfect.
Journey. Yeah, Signs. Robert Guelich is no longer around. I think Janet Hagberg might still be alive, but Stages in the Life of Faith. And it's a really good outside perspective, so you can understand what Mormonism did to you and recognize that it's the game that all unhealthy religions are playing. So,
Excellent,
anyway,
excellent.
yep.
I'll suggest it for the Good Book Club with Rebecca.
Yeah, it'd be great. Thank you very much, my friend. Thank you for joining the show.
Okay, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I want to thank you, Bill and RFM. Like, this has been such an honor. And I wanted to be able to talk on your show when I was writing my book. And I was like, someday maybe it'll happen. And that's today. So thank you so much.
Yeah, you're very welcome, Carrie.
All faithful prayers are answered.
You did it. You got to be on Mormonism Live, a show that you've been paying attention to the two of us. It's been fun to sort of hear that you've been a fan of the show, and it's great that you've got a book, and we were able to have you on and to talk about it. And highly suggest folks that you consider getting the book. Goodbye, Magic Undies. Onto the Reel Undies, huh?
Maybe.
Or no undies at all, in your case, Bill.
Hey, I'm wearing a shirt. Who knows what's down below?
I like the no undies. That's yeah.
In honor of our guest. Well, thank you, Carrie. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Radio Free Mormon, for being here alongside me. What a great episode, folks. Buy the book, Goodbye, Magic Undies, available at Amazon. I saw the Kindle version, at least for me, was free. I'm an Amazon Prime member, so maybe it's just me.
As part of the program. If you have like Kindle Unlimited, it's free right now for
So
like 90 days.
Go get the free version on Kindle. Go buy the book, the hard copy on Amazon. Carrie Sweet, thank you so much. To everybody else, thank you for joining us. Please, we do survive on donations, so please go to MormonismLive.org. Click the donate button. Again, something small, $5 a month. We're not going to ask for 10% of gross. We don't even ask for 10% of surplus or net or interest. We just want $5 a month, $10 a month. If you can, it helps us out a whole bunch. Go to MormonismLive.org, click the donate button. Thank you to everybody who commented in the live chat. You guys are a ton of fun. We'll see you Friday for Mormonism After Dark at 8 p.m. We'll see you Monday for the newscast. Otherwise, we'll see you on the flip side for Mormonism Live next Wednesday at 6:20 p.m. Good night, everybody.